Imagine running straight into gunfire, unarmed, while everyone around you falls to the ground. Bullets are flying, explosions shake the air, and you're carrying wounded soldiers on your back, one after another, refusing to stop. This isn't a movie hero. This was a real man. Desmond Doss, the only American soldier in World War II to fight on the front lines without ever touching a weapon. And somehow he became one of the most decorated heroes of the entire war. Born in Lynchburg, Virginia in 1919, Desmond Doss grew up during the Great Depression in a deeply religious family. His faith as a Seventh-day Adventist taught him two things: to love others and never to kill. These beliefs shaped every part of his life and would one day define his extraordinary courage. When World War II broke out, Doss wanted to serve his country, but he couldn't bring himself to take another person's life or even hold a rifle. Instead, he enlisted as a combat medic. Right away, this made him an outsider. His fellow soldiers mocked him. They called him a coward, a freak, and worse. They couldn't understand how someone could go into war and refuse to fight. Some even tried to get him discharged, but Doss stayed. He trained harder than anyone else, quietly determined to prove that his faith didn't make him weak. It made him stronger. Then came Okinawa, one of the bloodiest battles of the Pacific. The mission was to capture a towering cliff nicknamed Hacksaw Ridge. The ridge was a nightmare: sheer cliffs, mud, smoke, and constant enemy fire. The Japanese forces were dug in deep, and every inch was deadly. Soldiers climbed up the ridge and were mowed down almost instantly. When the attack began, chaos erupted. Machine guns rattled, mortars exploded, and screams filled the air. Many men were killed or wounded within minutes. The survivors had no choice but to retreat. But one man, Desmond Doss, refused to leave the wounded behind. As darkness fell, Doss stayed on the ridge alone. One by one, he dragged injured soldiers to the cliff's edge, tied them to a rope, and lowered them down 70, 80, maybe even 100 feet to safety. He had no weapon, no cover, just his faith and sheer will. Each time he saved someone, he whispered a simple prayer: "Lord, please help me get one more." All night he kept going, through gunfire, through exhaustion, through fear. When dawn finally came, he had rescued an estimated 75 men. 75 lives saved by one unarmed soldier. Even some of the men who had mocked him before owed their lives to him that night. His bravery didn't stop there. In later battles, he continued to put himself in danger, tending to the wounded under fire. Once he was hit by a grenade and still crawled to help another soldier before allowing himself to be treated. When he was finally carried off the battlefield, he gave up his stretcher to another man and waited for the next one. For his incredible courage and selflessness, Desmond Doss became the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military award. President Harry S. Truman personally presented it to him, saying he'd never been more proud to honor a soldier. What made Doss's story so powerful wasn't just his bravery, it was his conviction. He never compromised his beliefs, even when the entire world told him he was wrong. He showed that true courage isn't about how many enemies you defeat, but how much you're willing to risk for others. After the war, Doss lived a quiet life. He didn't seek fame or recognition. In fact, for decades, most people had never heard his story. He grew vegetables, raised a family, and stayed humble, even as others called him a hero. When asked how he managed to do what he did, Doss simply said, "I couldn't imagine myself living by the 10 Commandments and taking life." His story reached the world again through the 2016 film Hacksaw Ridge, directed by Mel Gibson, which brought Doss's heroism to a new generation. But behind the Hollywood version is a simple truth. One man's faith, compassion, and courage changed the course of countless lives. Desmond Doss proved that you don't need to carry a weapon to be a warrior. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in kindness, in conviction, and in refusing to give up on others. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps more people discover heroes like Desmond Doss. Subscribe for more incredible stories from history and check out the next video to meet another person who changed the world in their own unforgettable way.